Welcome, everybody. This is Alan with Daily Armour of God. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're all doing well. This is reading the Old Testament chronologically in 111 days. And today we'll be continuing through Genesis, reading chapters 37 through 42. So we're here with Joseph's story now. Joseph. And we're going to get into his story, which is an amazing story. The Bible is full of amazing stories. So I just love reading the Bible. Let's continue here, Genesis 37, verse 1. And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he had made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably unto him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray thee, this dream which I have dreamed. For, behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaf stood around about, and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it his brother, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren, and his father rebuked him, and he said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come down to bow ourselves to thee and to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, Here I am. And he said unto him, Go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and came unto Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where do they feed their flocks? And the man said, They are departed hence, for I heard them say, Let us go over to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren, and found them in Dothan. When they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit, and we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, Let us not kill him. And Reuben said to them, Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him up to his father again. And it came to pass, when Joseph was come out unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat, and his coat of many colors that was on him. They took him, cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked. Behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, What profit if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites. Let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. So in a weird sense, he saved him because they wanted to just outright kill him. But Judah was like, well, let's try to make some money. I'm not saying what he did was right, but it's better than allowing him to just be killed, right? So there passed by Midianites merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the dirt and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelite for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. And Reuben returned into the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes. And he returned unto his brother and said, the child is not there, and I, whither shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat and killed the goats, and dipped the blood in the coat, and dipped the coat in the blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father, and said, this have we found, no other, whether it be thy son's coat or no. And he knew it and said, it is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes and put on sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, for I will go down into the grave until my son morning. Thus his father wept for him. Man, can you imagine how hard that would be? Not just as a parent, but he, I guess, loved him a little bit more than his other children. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard. All right, chapter 38. It came to pass at the time that Judah went down from his brethren and turned into a certain Adullamite whose name was Hira. So here we kind of see like a side story, so to speak. We will get back to Joseph's story, but this is like a side story. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua, and he took her and went into her. And she conceived and bare a son, and called his name Er. She conceived again and bare a son, and she called his name Onan. And she yet again conceived and bare a son, and called his name Shelah. And he was yet at Shezib when she bare him. And Judah took a wife for Er, his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. And Er, Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. And Judah said to Onan, go in unto thy brother's wife, and marry her, and raise up seed to thy brother. And Onan knew that the seed should not be his, and it came to pass when he went in unto his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord, wherefore he slew him also. Then said Judah to Tamar his daughter-in-law, remain a widow at thy father's house, till Shelah my son be grown, for he said, lest peradventure he die also. As his brethren did, and Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. In the process of time, the daughters of Shua, Judah's wife, died. And Judah was comforted, and went up unto his sheep shearers to Timnah, and he and his friend Hira the Adullamite. And it was told Tamar, saying, behold, thy father-in-law goeth up to Timnath to shear sheep. And she put her widow's garments off from her, covered her with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in the open place which is by the way to Timnath, for she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given unto him to wife. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be a harlot, because she had covered her face. And he turned unto her by the way, and said, go to, I pray thee, let me come in unto thee. For he knew that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, what wilt thou give me that thou mayest come in unto me? And he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock. And she said, wilt thou give me a pledge till thou send it? And he said, what pledge shall I give thee? And she said, thy signet and thy bracelets and thy staff that is in thine hand. And he gave it to her, and came in unto her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went away, and laid by her veil from her, and put on garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend the Adullamite to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. Then he asked the men of that place, saying, where is that harlot that was openly by the wayside? And they said, there was no harlot in in this place? And he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. And also the men of that place said that there was no harlot in this place. And Judah said, Let her take it to her, lest we be shamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and thou hast not found her. And it came to pass about the 3 months after that it was told Judah, saying, Tamar, thy daughter-in-law, hath played the harlot, and also behold, she is with child by whoredom. And Judah said, Bring her forth, and let her be burnt. And when she was brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, By the man whose these are, I am with child. And she said, Discern, I pray thee, whose these are, the signet, the bracelets, and the staff. And Judah acknowledged them and said, She hath been more righteous than I, because that I gave her not to Shelah my son. And he knew her again no more. So, okay, I'll get to that in a second. And it came to pass in the time of her travail that, behold, twins were in her womb. And it came to pass when she travailed that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, This came out first. And it came to pass as he drew back his hand, that behold, his brother came out. And she said, How hast thou broken forth? This breach be upon thee. Therefore his name was called Pharez. And afterward came out his brother that had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zara. So, to explain this, people like to always pull up random stories out of the Bible and make it perverse and take it out of context. The situation, the situation is not a good situation right now. But yeah, there's lessons to be learned here. And you also have to remember that there were traditions and customs back in these days. And one of them was, if you had sons and a wife, and one of your sons died and had a wife, then that means that your next son would marry her and try to raise up seed, like the Bible says. And so on and so forth. In this case, she thought that he didn't want to give her his last son, right? She basically a huge misunderstanding. He okay, so what he was thinking was he didn't want to give his last son to her because his other two sons died, right? And so he didn't want to lose his last son, so that's why he didn't, even though he said he would give her his last son to be her wife, to be her husband, excuse me, and raise seed. And so since that didn't happen and she was waiting, I guess she took matters in her own hands. I mean, they're both to blame here for this situation, but she took matters in her own hands. And was it right that he went and visited a harlot? Oh, no, but you know, this whole situation, it just teaches us a lesson and shows us different customs during this time. So anyway, she took her matters into her own hands and pretended to be a harlot so she could, I guess, have children. So anyway, yeah, people love to nitpick the Bible and pull out all these stories and just like say, see here, it's perverse, and this and that and the other. But you have to read context and things. So there's lessons to be learned here, but also customs and history that we can learn. So continuing on to Joseph's story. I don't know why that particular story is in the middle of Joseph's story, but I'm sure there's a reason. Genesis 39. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hands. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house, and all that he had he put into his hand. And it came to pass from the time that he had made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake, and the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, Lie with me. But he refused and said to his master's wife, Behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand. There is nothing greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? And it came to pass, as she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her, to lie by her or to be with her. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. Yeah, this guy, Joseph, is really good at fleeing temptation. There's a lesson here. There's so many lessons in, in the Bible, but in Genesis and in Joseph's story, there's so many lessons. One of them is we have to have a passion to flee from sin. So, and it came to pass when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth, that she called unto the men of her house and spake unto them, saying, See, he hath brought in a Hebrew unto us to mock us. And he came unto me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. And it came to pass when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me, and fled and got him out. And she laid up his garment by her until his lord came home. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, The Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came in to mock me. And it came to pass, as I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me, and fled out. And it came to pass when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, After this manner did thy servant do to me, that his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, and a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him mercy, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. The keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him in that which he did, and the Lord made it to prosper. In Genesis 40. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord the king of Egypt, and Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers, and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in ward in the house of the captain of the guard, into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. The captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season in the ward. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream, and one night each man according to the interpretation of his dream. The butler and the baker, the king of Egypt, which were bound in prison. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand. And I took the grapes, and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head, and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, after the former manner when thou wast his butler. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and there And here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head. And in the uppermost basket there was of all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. And it came to pass on the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgat him. Genesis 41. And it came to pass at the end of the 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine, thin fat-fleshed, and they fed in a meadow. Behold, 7 of the kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke, and he slept and dreamed the 2nd time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears, and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. The 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank full of ears, and Pharaoh woke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men thereof, and Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me in ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream in one night, I and he, and we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there with us a young man, a Hebrew, servant to the captain of the guard, and we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and he shaved himself, and changed his raiment, and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it, and I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand the dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon a bank of the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed and well-favored, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill-favored, and lean-fleshed, such as I had never seen in all the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored, as at the beginning. So I awoke. And I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 ears withered and thin, and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me. Joseph said unto Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one. God hath showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. The 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, and there shall rise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land of the reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice, it is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up a fifth part of the land of Egypt in the seven plenteous years, and let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such a one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said to Joseph, Forasmuch as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. Wow. Reading these verses give me goosebumps right now. Just think about this for a second. He's in the throne room talking to Pharaoh, probably, I don't know, maybe hours before that, or maybe even minutes before this happened. He was in the dungeon thinking, when, Lord? When am I going to get out of this dungeon? How long do I have to be here? And he was brought out that day, and from being a prisoner, a slave prisoner, not just a prisoner, but a slave prisoner, and then Pharaoh, king of all Egypt, says that he can be over all his house, and he has the word. It says, "Thy word shall all my people be ruled." And he says, "Only in the throne will I be greater than thou." So basically, throne wise, I'm greater than you, but you are going to be the new leader, the new head, like governor, I guess you would call him. But like, this is just insane to think about. Within minutes or hours, even however long it took him to shave and come to the Pharaoh, he went from slave prisoner to ruler of all Egypt, and the only one higher than him is Pharaoh. Like, wow, I just get goosebumps thinking about this whole story and this situation, because Joseph went through so much waiting and super long periods of waiting, super ridiculous and probably insane in his eyes situations. He was innocent. He didn't touch Potiphar's wife. He fought the temptation, and what did he get for fighting to the temptation? He got prison. And not only that, but his own flesh and blood brothers sold him into slavery. He was in a strange land, and just, oh man, this, I love Joseph's story because all these bad things happen to him, but God is with him the entire time, and even when he's in the dungeon, and for years he's there, thinking, when, Lord, when will my time come? And it just comes upon him so fast. He comes out of prison, shaves, probably gets dressed presentable, goes in front of Pharaoh, and boom, you know, it's God who interpreted Pharaoh's dream anyway. So it just proves that God was with him and had a plan for this moment, because God's timing is perfect timing. And it wasn't in Joseph's timing. This timing was literally perfect because of what Joseph's idea was to set aside a little bit of grain during the prosperous years and all this. So if he tried to rush it or anything, not that he could have because he was in prison, but it would have done him no good to worry about his situation. Yeah, it sucks, his situation, and probably our situations that we go through suck and stink, sorry, and are unpleasant. But we need to remember that God was with Jacob, or Joseph. He was with Jacob too, but he's with us all, and it says in the Bible he'll never leave us nor forsake us. Just sometimes we have to go through periods of waiting and periods of trials and periods of pain, but if you're sticking close to the Lord and sticking with it, God will honor his plan for your life. So that's a very important lesson here. Sorry I'm going on about it, but it just gives me goosebumps reading these verses. I have literal goosebumps right now because we have to learn from this how that God was with him, God is with us, and it's his timing that things will happen, not ours. And we need to always keep that in mind and keep trusting him, keep waiting upon him, keep having faith in him, unfeigned, fervent, passionate faith. Have your heart on fire, have a passion, have a zeal for the Lord. He wants us burning, he wants us hot for him. It says that he doesn't want us lukewarm. He'd rather have us hot or cold. He doesn't want us lukewarm. So we need to be on fire for the Lord. All right, let's continue on. So, yeah, no one is greater than him and than Joseph, than Pharaoh here. Like he has rule over everything, the people, his household, everything. So Genesis 41:41. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried before him, Bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh, and went throughout all the land of Egypt. So yeah, we're all going to go through periods of time in our life where we're waiting. Joseph's waiting, I guess you could say, was 30 years. Right? I mean, obviously, when he was a kid and teenager, he probably had a good life up until his brothers started being envious and jealous over him. And then when his brothers sold him into slavery, and that started his journey. Probably, let's just say, closer to 20 years. 20 years of being a slave. Wait, no. Maybe more like 15. Something like that. But the fact of the matter is, he was a slave for many, many, many years. And he was in prison for many years. And so we are all going to go through times of waiting. And we just have to keep on waiting. And there's so many examples of waiting in the Bible, right? Think of Sarah and Abraham. How many years did they wait until they got Isaac, which was a miracle? And this whole situation here is clearly a miracle. Like no other way this could have happened if it wasn't for God interpreting the dream. Even Joseph said, it's not me that interprets it, it's God. So, because he had faith in God that God would reveal to him the dreams. So Genesis 41:47, and in the 7 plenteous years the earth brought forth by handfuls. And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities, the food of the field which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, till he left numbering, for it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God, said he, hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. The name of the second called he Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. Man, isn't that awesome? How those names have such deep meanings. That's just so amazing. And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. And the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said, and the dearth was in all lands, but in the land of Egypt there was bread. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread, and Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he saith to you, do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth, and Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that all the famine was so sore in the land. I just want to point this out. If you didn't know, corn is not referencing like corn on the cob. Look up the etymology of the word corn. It's in reference to grain, hence why they were crying for bread. I don't know how you'd make bread with corn on the cob, but anyway, people like to nitpick and said, "Oh, it should say grain. It should say grain." No, corn is actually a correct term. Look it up in the Webster's 1828 dictionary. Look it up and actually just look up the etymology of it, and you will find that corn is indeed grain. So, just a little fun fact for you guys if you didn't know, and if you're curious why it says corn in the Bible, it's actually grain. Speaking, one more curious fact: there's this bread, this flour you can get even today. It's probably expensive now, but it's called einkorn, einkorn, with a K, EINKORN, and it's an ancient grain, and it's very, very, very healthy for you, and it's super delicious. I've tried it. I've actually made it myself, homemade einkorn bread, and the fact that it has it makes sense why it's called corn, because corn comes from CORN comes from KORN, which is referencing to grain. So anyway, just a interesting fact for you there. Genesis 42. Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, Why do you look one upon another? And he said, Behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down thither, and buy from us from thence, that we may live and not die. And Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy corn in Egypt. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with him, with his brethren, for he said, Lest peradventure mischief befall him. You know, this is very telling. This word mischief befall him. You know, I don't know this for a certainty, but it sounds like Jacob kind of had some suspicions, right? I mean, it sounds like it. It really does. But the Bible doesn't clearly say that he, you that he knew that his brothers, lied to him. But yeah, it's very interesting. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was the governor, governor was the right word, governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, Whence come ye? And they said, From the land of Canaan, to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew him not. Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them, and said unto them, Ye are spies, to see the nakedness of the land ye are come. And they said unto him, Nay, my lord, but to buy food are thy servants come. We are all one man's sons, we are true men, thy servants are no spies. And he said unto them, Nay, but to see the nakedness of the land ye are come. And they said, Thy servants are 12 brethren, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not. And Joseph said unto them, That is it that I spake unto you, saying, Ye are spies. Hereby shall ye be proved by the life of Pharaoh. Ye shall not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come hither. Send one of you, and let him fetch your brother, and ye shall be kept in prison, that your words may be proved whether there be any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh, surely ye are spies. And he put them all together into ward 3 days. And Joseph said unto them the 3rd day, This do and live, for I fear God. If ye be true men, let one of your brethren be bound in the house of your prison. Go ye, carry corn for the famine of your houses, but bring your youngest brother unto me. So shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die. And they did so. And they said one to another, We are verily guilty concerning our brother, and that we saw the anguish of his soul. when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us. Yep, they're feeling guilty. All right. Most likely, doesn't say. Most likely they felt guilt their entire life for that. So, but you can clearly see here they're like, yeah, uh, what we did to Joseph is coming back to bite us in the butt right now. Like this is coming around, and it quite literally is, right? And Joseph really is proving them here. He wants to see if they're telling the truth, and if they feel any regret or sorrow about what they did to him. He's trying their hearts. But you can clearly see Joseph still loves them because of what he's doing, sending them away with grain. But they just have to come back, and he's only keeping one of the brothers in prison until the others come back. And Reuben answered them, saying, Spake I not unto you, saying, Do not sin against the child, and ye would not hear? Therefore, behold, also his blood is required. And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spake unto them by an interpreter. And he turned himself about from them, and wept, and returned to them again, and communed with them, and took from them Simeon, and bound him before their eyes. And then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn, and to restore every man's money into his sack, and to give them provision for the way. And thus did he unto them. And they laded their asses with the corn, and departed thence. And as one of them opened up his sack to give his ass provender in the inn, he espied his money, for behold, it was in his sack's mouth. And he said unto his brethren, My money is restored, and lo, it is even in my sack. And their heart failed them, and they were afraid, saying one unto another, What is this that God hath done unto us? And they came unto Jacob their father unto the land of Canaan, and told him all that befell unto them, saying, The man who is the Lord of the land spake roughly to us, and took us for spies for the country. And we said unto him, We are true men, we are no spies. We be 12 brethren, sons of our father. One is not, and the youngest is this day with our father in the land of Canaan. And the man, the Lord of the country, said unto us, Hereby shall I know that ye are true men. Leave one of your brethren here with me, take food for the famine of your households, and be gone. And bring your youngest brother unto me. Then shall I know that ye are no spies, but that ye are true men. So will I deliver you your brother, and ye shall traffic in the land. And it came to pass, as they emptied their sacks, that behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when both they and their fathers saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob their father said unto them, Me have ye bereaved of my children. Joseph is not, Simeon is not, and ye will take Benjamin away. All these things are against me. And Reuben spake unto his father, saying, Slay my 2 sons if I bring him not to thee. Deliver him into my hand, and I will bring him to thee again. And he said, My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If mischief befall him by the way, in the which ye go, then ye shall bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. So obviously we see here Jacob does not want to send his youngest son, which is Joseph's true brother. He doesn't want to send him down. And it's kind of a weird place to stop. 42. Unfortunately, we'll have to stop the story here, but cliffhanger. And I mean, pretty much the story's almost over. But man, there's some great verses here that give me goosebumps anyway. All these verses about Joseph, pretty much all of them, give me goosebumps because it's such an amazing story. Has so many lessons to learn, and so much amazing things to it. So good stuff. All right, that's gonna be it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys have a great evening, morning, noon, wherever you're at. Remember to put God first in everything you do. Have faith in him, trust in him, wait upon him, and be in the word daily. You'll never be sorry. And God willingly, we'll see you tomorrow with more Genesis. So thanks again. Take care, and God bless.